Hello everyone, and welcome to another Useberry session. Today we'll explore a real case study to show you how PixelTex, a creative agency, uses Useberry in their design process to deliver better results for their clients. So a little bit about me, I'm Krisa, and I run community here at Useberry. That means that I spend my time connecting with UX professionals and product teams, sharing helpful content, and creating spaces like this one here where we can all learn from each other. I've got Chris here with me. He's the creative director at PixelTex. Hi, Chris. Nice having you here with us.
Pleasure to be here.
Would you like to share more about who you are and what you do, and a little more about the company that we represent?
Yeah, sure. I'll try not to repeat what's in the deck as well. But yeah, Chris at PixelTex, creative director, been with PixelTex now for more than 10 years. It was actually founded by my business partner, who was a tech director back in the days when we both worked in sort of larger agencies like Saatchi & Saatchi, TBWA, digital agency called agency.com, which is where we worked. We both kind of left the industry or the ad industry about the same time, both with this kind of feeling of wanting to do something a little bit better, maybe for smaller clients, maybe for clients that didn't have the same sort of budgets with the big kind of Unilever style clients and Procter & Gamble style clients that we were working with. I was starting up a small creative agency, and now PixelTex, we've merged the two agencies into PixelTex, so we're doing full build with UX research, UX and UI design through to mainly WordPress builds. Yeah, so if anything sounds interested, check out our website, www.pixeltex.com. Or feel free, if anything of it here interests you, then get in touch with me, Chris at pixeltex.com, or Sepas, who's the tech director. If you've got more technical questions, Sepas at pixeltex.com.
Great. So if you're ready, Chris, I think we can start with the case study.
So today, what I really wanted to talk about was a little bit about how we use Useberry in our workflow. So I'm not going to go into huge amount of details into sort of a masterclass of design or research or a lot of the functionality within Useberry. I think that's something that the Useberry website does a fantastic job of doing. We use that resource all the time. There's little how-tos, there's videos on YouTube. So that's not the purpose of this presentation. I think this is really more just to give you an idea of the kind of ethics, why we use Useberry, what led us to use Useberry, and a little bit more about what we do and what we believe is important, and therefore how the platform supports us. So, as I said, we're PixelTex, and I'm really excited to share this experience of how we use Useberry. We're essentially what we call a purpose-driven digital agency. We've been B Corp certified, which we're very proud of, for 3 years now. This was really kind of the icing on the cake for us. We've been working with charities and not-for-profit and membership organizations pretty much since the incarnation of PixelTex 12 years ago now. We don't exclusively work with charities and membership organizations and not-for-profit. We do work with corporates as well, but I'll explain a little bit about this later. It's generally what we call purpose-driven organizations. And what we want to give people is smart and modern websites. And we put these at the heart of positive impact organizations. And our belief is that, particularly for smaller organizations, I guess organizations that don't have the big budgets, the big marketing budgets, the big PPC budgets, they need something to point all of their activities, all of their strategies, all of their communications, all of their campaigns towards, and that generally becomes a website. So we need to make that very, very fast loading and very, very easy to use, very, very easy to update, and very, very easy to build on over time. So by smart, what we mean, and I guess this is where we're really going to focus on today, is usable, findable, and trackable. So particularly that usable bit, we need to make sure that everything is insight-led. So all the designs we're creating, all of the structures, the IA, the kind of the flow through the website that we're creating really, really need to be validated, tested, and understood. The findable is more about SEO, so building websites that can be found. I mean, you can build the most beautiful UX, the most beautiful looking website in the world, the best built website in the world. If no one finds it, then what's the point? So we make sure that we're looking for organic search. Organic search is a big thing for us. Obviously PPC is great, you push people towards a website. What we generally find is if people come to your website organically, once they get there, as long as the UX is strong, so as long as you've done your research and you're giving people what they're expecting, or sort of, you know, entertaining or surprising in a good way, people, they stay longer than general PPC clicks. So we look for this organic findability. It also means if someone's heard a radio ad or seen you on the TV or anything else, they're going to remember your name, and that might be what they search on. So as long as you're coming up high in the search results, then that's great. And then finally, trackable. Obviously, we use Useberry to do the upfront. We use Useberry also throughout projects as well. If we want to test new flows, if we want to do any A/B testing, we use that as well. But making sure that our websites are built to be trackable, so we can see trends in the analytics, the Googles, the Hotjars, the Clarities of this world, and then test what we're seeing, or test some hypothesis that we're creating with the Useberry platform. And then modern is really just about being desirable, so making sure things look good, making sure they're on brand, making sure they're what people are interested in. Robust is really about this, really about making sure that sites last the test of time and can really work when different bits of content, different bits of requirements are pushed at them. And then sustainable is a big thing for us, and this works on many levels. Creating websites that are sustainable, so they're lightweight, just so they use less power. I mean, there's shocking numbers around the amount of energy that server farms use, and AI. I mean, we'll go into that today, but you know, we try and make sure that our sites are very low impact in terms of sort of carbon footprint, but also just how long they last. I think anybody who's been through a web rebuild project or redesign, whatever it is, you'll know it is quite stressful, and that's something we try and reduce the amount of stress on people throughout the process of building the website, but then also make sure that website lasts longer than average. So our websites generally last 6 years plus. We've got sites that are 9 years old, I think now. Yes, they probably need an update in terms of the interface, but they're working, they're still fast, they still work, they still profile well. So it's not just about sustainability in terms of carbon footprint. You've got to think about the people that are using this as well. And that's something I think we're going to also focus on today. We're really proud of the people we work with. I've tried to put a little bit of a spread of the kinds of organizations we work with here. We've got everything from the Royal Foundation, who work with in many different sort of themes. They work on environmental projects. They work on projects for homeless people. It's a very broad spectrum of for good, purpose-driven ideas and projects that they create. World Sustainable Hospitality Alliance, I'm not going to go through all of these, by the way. World Sustainable Hospitality Alliance look to really make sure that the sort of leisure industry, the hospitality industry, is working in ethical ways. So they really campaign to reduce or eradicate any sort of modern slavery, making sure that hotels and complexes are running very energy efficient, even down to the catering, and making sure that people are thinking sustainably about the products they're using and their menus and everything else. So we're really proud of that. And then probably the biggest one is at the moment is the Earthshot Prize. Originally started as a project out of the Royal Foundation. It's now privately owned. Earthshot Prize gives 5 people, 5 startups, £1 million each to promote their ideas that look to clean our air, clean our oceans, improve our environment, and I can't remember the other 2 off the top of my head. But really worthwhile causes that we're proud to work and help with. And that's really where our story starts. So we found through a number of reports that we ran a few years back now, This is probably the most recent one in 2024, that charities were making really poor use of their websites. I think there was like more than a third, well, it was around a third of charities could do way better in terms of how their websites were being used. And this was us looking at how the websites are being used, but also the perception from actually interviewing people within charities and how they felt about how their websites were supporting them in their needs. An earlier report that we conducted was looking really at just trying to benchmark how charity websites and how not-for-profit websites were performing. We looked at a number of different metrics on this. I can share the details if you're interested over an email, but generally speaking, we found that less than 2% of charities that we audited got an overall grade of A+, and we were looking at usability. We were looking at how well the websites communicated the message of the charity, how easy it was to get engaged, how easy things were to update and maintain. So there were a number of different metrics, and the score was low. So this kind of led us to sort of understand that, hey, with our backgrounds working with very big budgets to sort of bigger organizations, how can we produce something? How can we produce an offering at a price that charities, not-for-profits, startups, and purpose-driven organizations can afford? Okay, so where does that start? That starts really with the basics. Whenever we go into an organization, we say, look, start with the simple things. Just start with what you know, and just remember that everything you do is a reflection on your brand in the digital space. Like even down to the example I'm putting up here, which is a 404 page, right? It's a maintenance page. It means something's gone wrong. It means you haven't found what you were looking for. There was a dead link. Something's been moved. The algorithms haven't been put in to make sure it's pushed. That either a misspelling in the URL has led you to this page. Someone hasn't made sure that there's autocorrect and it's pushing you to the right page. You've hit a page. It's potentially a bad experience for a brand. But you can turn that. You can actually start to think about, okay, well, what do we do as a charity? So as an organization, we produce website experiences for charities. So if someone hits a 404 page on our site, we've done everything we can to stop this happening. If you type in blog wrong, you spelled blog wrong, it'll autocorrect and it'll push you to the blogs. If you spell our services wrong, or you typed in the team incorrectly, it'll know roughly in the back end that it needs to push you somewhere and it'll give you a page. But say something's gone wrong and you've hit the 404 page, we've tried to make it a little bit lighthearted. So you found the 404 page. We started to say that, based on what we know, this is where we think you should go. So we're saying things like, we're guessing here, but based on our GA4 data, we think you might enjoy. So we're already starting to say, look, we research into this. And then we're giving links through to the top view pages on our website. So our most used case studies, people always want to see who's, if we're sort of engaging with a new client, they want to go and see the team. So they want to go and see our not so beautiful faces. They might want to find out who we work with. They might want to find out, what the latest case study, whatever it is. And then below that, we're giving what we believe are our 404 page recommendations. So what I'm giving you here. So again, hopefully they didn't find that what they were looking for, but someone who's actually landed on this page walks away with something. So they might think, oh, okay, all right, well, at least Pixel Days kind of gave me something. That was interesting. So, even down to simple things like this, it's a reflection on your brand, it's a reflection on your organization. And this is where today we'll talk about understanding your audience and how we use Useberry to do that. Understanding how your audience might react and what might be useful to them, even in these sort of situations, is absolutely paramount. So think about, complicated customer experiences, complicated user experiences, interfaces that are confusing, even if they look fantastic, even if someone's gone, even if your creative director or your marketing team have gone and said, this page looks exactly like the brand should look like, if there's anything in that user experience or customer experience or interface that isn't really resonating with your audience, it's going to have a negative brand experience, a negative impression on your organization. Another one is slow loading websites. So probably less about what we're concentrating on today. But if your site isn't built well, if it's not fast loading, if the performance is slow, that's a negative impact. That's a negative reflection on your organization. So it could be the most beautiful looking website with the most beautiful high-res images, but if they're taking 3 seconds to download, 5 seconds, even 1.5 seconds, and making people wait for a page each time it loads, eventually people are going to get a little bit fed up with your organization and say, actually, do you know what? I use the other people that are doing something similar. So you've really got to think about that. There are instances where obviously if you, and again, this almost goes full circle, if you created a very loyal base of customers or base of users or base of members, whatever it might be, sometimes you can make people wait. I mean, Nike, if they're bringing out a new trainer for a football team, they've probably got a bunch of people who are really, really interested in that particular trainer, so they can potentially have the luxury of making people wait for the lovely 3D spinner where they can go and customize their trainer, whatever it might be. But for most of us, that isn't the case. Another example is just ensuring from a visual perspective, I'm sort of talking more about user, site performance and UX performance, just making sure things are consistent on all of your different channels is absolutely crucial. Obviously, the big guys do this just by nature, but we often see with smaller organizations, startups, that things look very, very different when you see them in print, when you see them on the web, when you see them on social, and just making sure all of that ties in, because all of this leads to a much bigger perception of who you are and a much more united experience as people interact with you through the different channels. And all of this, obviously, Useberry can help because you can test all this. So this is an example of WCRF, World Cancer Research Fund. The website, when we took it on board, is on the right here. Their other channels of communication are on the left, and there was this real disconnect. The fonts were different from a start. The colors, the way they were being used, were very, very different. The way the photography and the illustrations were being used was so different. So we started to, in fact, we did use Useberry for this one as well. We started to really look at how we could just bring in some of those little indications that were coming through in the brand. So the rounded corners, the slightly sort of cut out imagery that we're seeing. How could we actually bring that into the website and make something that, yes, this is managed by the organization, so we don't have complete control over all of the content, but make it feel much more part of their kind of organizational look and feel. So just bringing in those radiused edges, the rounded images, making sure the colors were a little bit more sympathetic to how they're used elsewhere, and then obviously bringing in the right font. It just makes sure that we go from something that feels like it could almost be a different organization and the user really having to think, am I in the right place, to something where they just know they're in the right place. So I've spoken a little bit now about doing just the basics of what we do. And the crux of this is always understanding your audience and your channel. So we're talking about websites because we're Pixel Eggs. That's generally what we do. We do apps as well. We do a little bit of social, but it's generally websites. That's our sort of sweet spot. And this is where we find Useberry really, really helps us. It gives us an amazing access to audience. It gives us a suite of tools that will match, if not better, a lot of the other platforms that you see. And this is all at a price point that our clients and ourselves can use regularly, which is how we believe these sort of platforms should be used. I think iterative testing and testing just enough is really the way forward. I don't think, particularly with the kind of organizations we deal with, we can't go into the big research studies up front. Sometimes we do that, but generally we find we need to be quite clever in the way that we can gain enough insight to actually go forward with an idea and prove a hypothesis. So we generally use Useberry and GA4 and other sort of products like Clarity and Hotjar to help us gain that sort of overview of how the site's being used and start to test things that we want to understand. We're really lucky. I think other sectors also have this, but charities and membership organisations generally have quite a loyal set of customers, unless they've done something really, really wrong, and the strategy might be not quite right for the organisation. We generally find people want to get involved, and I think this is something I want to concentrate on, because we go back to that Nike example. They had loyal customers, right? So they had a little bit of leeway in terms of maybe breaking the rules a little bit. When I was at Saatchi, we often used to talk about something called love marks, and the idea was that you created a sort of a lovable connection between owners and the products and services they were buying. So we kind of generally have that in the charity sector. Charities have loyal beneficiaries, they have loyal supporters. And this really helps us when we're using platforms like Useberry, because we know that we've got, when we're doing qualitative testing, we know that we've got a set of very, very eager, hungry people that want to come and give their point of view or help us make a product get better. And that is something that's hugely important to us. And then if we back that also with the audiences that you can curate through Useberry to get more of that qual, then you've got something really powerful, right? Because you've got 5, 6, 7, 10, 15 people who know the organization and can give you sort of insights on what their experience has been with. But then you can also double check that with sort of a profiled audience through the platform and see, okay, are we seeing the same thing with wider audiences? Or with this audience, we know what we need to do. Then now let's test it with the wider audience and see if maybe that particular user flow or that new structure works through a tree test or whatever it might be. So this is something I'd like all of you to sort of get towards, as having this kind of loyal set of people that you can test with, and hopefully we'll sort of show how we get there through this presentation. So yeah, the first thing to really understand is how and where our audience is using your website today. What's their perception of you? Massively important. And then therefore, how can we make it easier for them to get what they need? So the two images on the right hand side, imagine you've got you're opening a new gym, or you've got a chain of gyms or treatment therapy locations. Are your audience retired, sitting on a terrace, looking through your website, thinking what they might be able to do this week in terms of a yoga session, a relaxation session? Or are your audience a little bit more Gen Y, millennials, sat on a platform, waiting for their train home, trying to book a class or a spin class, whatever it might be, in time for when they get home and had a little bit of food and they want to go out and do their session? You're going to need to provide very, very different experiences for those two audiences. I'm not going to go into exactly what they'll be, obviously, but you can imagine, at the bottom, you're going to need something very fast, very quick, something very familiar. Show what's available tonight in the next hour, bang, 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 through we go. Whereas you might want to provide a little bit more of an experiential, slow, editorial style for the people above. So understanding who, how, and where your audience are using your site is amazing, and really understanding what they think of you as well. Hugely important. And this is where we start to use Useberry. And we love it because, as we said earlier, we can do this even at pitch level. We can do this because we can curate audiences cost effectively. We can get results back within hours, and we can spring up tests very, very quickly. If we want to test a website that's already live, we can do that. We don't even need to create a prototype. We can literally just pull that website into Useberry, ask the questions we need to ask, and off we go. We've got some insights that we can walk into a meeting with, and sort of say, look, do you know this is what people actually think about your website at the moment, or this is how people perceive you at the moment, or this is how people are actually trying to find. The example that we're showing here, I think, was a restaurant chain that we're working with. Yeah, so we just needed to understand at this stage, did this feel like an authentic Spanish experience? And Useberry allowed us to very, very quickly gain an insight onto what people actually felt the website was, or the restaurants were offering, based on what they were seeing on the website. And what we're really trying to do is a number of things here. We're trying to reduce cognitive load and increase accessibility. increase site speed and increase sustainability, and just think about how we can use familiar layout. So really, once we've understood where people are using the website, maybe why they're getting confused, what their perception of the client is, we can then think about, okay, well, what can we do to improve that? What can we actually start now to test our hypothesis and build on what we've learned through those simple sort of research questions that we're asking up front. This is a very, very basic view that I'm giving you at the moment. I'm just trying to sort of trying to explain the different ways that we use the platform. So once we've kind of built up that idea of who's coming to the website, maybe how they're using it, what they need to use, what their perception is, we can then start to change or start to test different ways of solving those problems. And again, this is where Useberry comes in, every time really for us. We used to use a few different platforms. I think now we're using solely Useberry within the team. So we can now start to really see how people are using the sites. Whereas before, maybe we were trying to get perception, we can now start to ask very, very specific questions. And again, at this point, we may still not have even built a prototype. We may still be using the existing website and just say, hey, okay, so what we're asking here, yeah. So what do you believe this organization does? Can you find the information you're looking for? General questions. This really starts to give us an idea, alongside the analytics that we're seeing in Google, of how well a website is performing, going back to that performance that we were talking about earlier, and making sure things are robust and fast loading and everything else. We can see that happening here. And then lastly is really just to understand where your website sits in your ecosystem. So I spoke at the beginning about your website, particularly for smaller organizations or organizations with smaller marketing budgets. Your website generally is the place that you're pointing things towards. If you've done something on social and you need sign-ups, you generally point people back to your website, so you've got everything coming into your CRM in one place. But you really need to just understand, what does your website need to do within everything that you've created. And again, we don't necessarily use Useberry to do that, but you can. I would imagine you can. You would probably be able to create a little bit more of sort of a customer experience user flow, and really understand how your website is used within that larger sort of CRM, fundraisers, ads, PPC, social campaigns, whatever it is that you're doing. Okay, so that's a little bit about audience. And now we'll go into thinking about really translating the ethics and your ethics and your brand into your digital experiences. And I'm going to go back again a little bit into the audience and creating that connection with your audience, what we called love marks in Saatchi, what we call moments of trust in Pixeled Eggs. Is really bringing your audience much closer to your organization and on your products and your services. So the first thing we always say is, look, this is a journey. I'm going to talk from the point of view of creating a new website, I think, or improving a website. Maybe you've had a creative brand change in terms of your look and feel. Maybe you've had a strategic change in terms of brand direction or marketing, or just in the way that the organization is going. But remember, you've, generally speaking, I mean, even with startups, you'll have some sort of connection with people that are already on board, either investors or whoever it might be. It's a journey, and it's something you should really be thinking about bringing people on right from the start. So yeah, bring people along the ride with you. And I think at this point, just think very, very early on, start asking the questions either to yourself or with the agencies that you're thinking of using. If you're thinking of using Useberry, or if your agencies are using Useberry, really see this as an opportunity and push to think not only about using the great tools that you got in the platform and the great functionality you got in the platform of pulling audiences together, but also who have you got? Who are you talking to at the moment? how can you bring those people along the journey as well? Because this really is an opportunity for you to start building trust and build those relationships and create those moments of trust and love marks that we were speaking about before. And that really starts with just making sure people are aware of what you're doing, making sure people who are already in your email list, already in your CRM, let them know right at the beginning of the project, hey, we're going to update our website. We'd love to have you involved, because at the end of the day, you're the guys that are using the website. So really think about how you can bring those people on board early on. So we often say to clients that if you're starting to think about changing your website, the minute we connect with the client, send out an email to your beneficiaries, to your supporters, to your fundraisers, to your donators, and just let them know and say, we're going to get you on, we're going to get you involved. And this is where Useberry is absolutely amazing, because you don't have to think about always getting people into a room and having those sort of moderated tests or research, or doing the classic user interviews. And engagement can be as simple as some of the examples I was showing earlier. Literally just putting the current website in and saying, what do you think about our current website? It can be as simple as that. Your audience feel engaged. So understanding what's working well, ask them what they like, what they don't like. If you are doing a new website build, there will be things that work on your website. It's not always a case of throwing absolutely everything out. If you're doing a redesign, there might be elements on this site that people really like. It might be UI elements, it might be imagery. You got to take that into consideration, because your change is good, change is great. People don't want to be shocked by change. So you need to make sure that particularly if you're doing radical change, if it's a complete rebrand, make sure you're bringing your current customers on that journey with you, so they can understand why the changes have been made. And then support's a two-way street. We're lucky, I guess, in the charity sector, that people want to give us the information. They want to help. They want to say what works and what doesn't work. And don't be afraid, obviously, to hear the things that don't work. You need to hear those. So allowing customers to sort of vent their frustrations is brilliant, because the last thing you want them to do is walk away. If they've vented their frustration, it gives you the opportunity to sort of respond to that and talk back. So it really is a journey. Testing isn't just an element of this whole process. It's fundamental. It's really about, we're talking about a website that is used by users, so they need to be really, really integral in any changes you make. So let them help you, or speak to you as much as you want to speak to them. And if you do this, what you see is comments like this. When we see things like this, or when our clients come to us and say, oh my God, we've just had this email, a few weeks after the site launched, it makes me sort of well up just sort of seeing it now. But this was part of an email that was sent back to the client for what used to be JDRF, is now Breakthrough T1D. It's an organization that looks at finding a cure for type 1 diabetes. They had an email from someone that, and I'm not sure if this is someone that was involved in the testing or not, I don't think it was. They felt so supported that they'd spent the whole day browsing through the content on the wonderful site. They'd recently been diagnosed. This only comes out of really understanding who the audience are, how they need to use the website, what's important to them. Obviously, there's what's important to you as an organization as well. So the general rule of thumb is, give something before you ask something. Once you've done that, once you've understood your audience, understood what's important to them in terms of look and feel, what's important in terms of content, they will feel engaged. They will feel some sort of connection with your brand, and therefore, or your products or your service, whatever it might be. And they're going to want to respond and give feedback and give information back. So this is what it's all about, right? So just to go into maybe a few case studies then of where we've done this. Brainkind used to be called the Disabilities Trust, I think it was. They were going through a big rebrand, a big organizational change, concentrating much more just on brain injury rather than disabilities as a whole. Potentially, it could be very damaging for them. Obviously, they're going to be not supporting a lot of people. But what we managed to do is really get the audience engaged through platforms like Useberry. We did use Useberry on this one, and really just bring that audience and also the organization, which was having a big restructure, along the journey of, hey, we're changing how we look and we're also changing the services that we offer, to create this new site that would be the first sort of manifestation of the new brand, but B was obviously the first sort of visibility of what the new product is. So using Useberry to test sort of content, what we were saying, we were able to do A/B testing, and we were able to see sort of how much content should we have on page, what was important to people. It really sort of helped us build a site that brought on quite a large set of audiences and beneficiaries along the journey, so they didn't feel so surprised by the end of it, but also just made sure that we were really reflecting what the sort of the new brand ethos and strategy was trying to do. Earthshot Prize we've spoken about at the beginning of this presentation. Earthshot Prize came to us originally in the first year of incarnation as just it was just a ceremony, a prize ceremony. So it was a one-pager in essence. We're going to give away £5 million on the, I forget the date now, September 2022, to five organisations that we've vetted and shortlisted to go and help us restore our air quality, revive our oceans, clean our air. Started as a one-page site. Over time, what we've done through more kind of classic research methodologies, but also using Useberry to go and test, is build out a roadmap for content migration. I think we're roughly in the middle one at the moment. So we've gone now from a site that just started about saying, hey, there's this great prize that happens once a year, to now thinking about all of the people that help find these great organizations and great startups that work across the globe. All of the people, sort of the general public that want to get involved now they've seen what's happening and want to know how they can do their bit. All of the shortlisted startups that now exist, I think we're 4 years in and need support, need to keep finding investors and people who are interested in the project. There's other audiences as well, I can't remember who they are. There's much wider audience. The site has to cater to many more needs and sort of scenarios, and we still use Useberry to really test all of our structures, all of our navigation areas. I think get involved is the next section we're going to be looking at over the next year or so, to really start building this out and building a site that doesn't need to be redesigned now in 2 years' time, because we've gone from being a one-pager that sat as a sort of a flyer for the event, now to a fully fledged website. We're still using the same base install of WordPress that we used at the start, but because we built it in such a way, by the way that we work as Pixeled Eggs, into something that can grow, and we've used products like Useberry to help us do that, test iteratively over time. We've got a site now that's performing, and we're seeing the results in the Google Analytics and the sort of heat map software that we use as well. So to sum up, quite a lot to take in. You got to remember that any kind of digital transformation you're doing, be it a change in strategy, a creative overhaul of your brand, whatever it might be, it's not just about that look and feel. It's not just about communicating the end result. It's really about the behavior. How did you do that change? How did you go from where you are now to the end product? Did you bring your audience along with you? Did you test iteratively throughout that whole phase, throughout that whole process, which could take, well, it could take anything from 3 months to, a year or more. were you bringing your people along that journey, and were you really gaining insight through products like Useberry into what's happening, how people are maybe responding to the things you're suggesting, how people are responding now to what you've got, and sort of iteratively building on that. So yeah, everything's experience. Whether you're doing that in person with focus groups, whether you're doing that online, whether you're doing it anonymously, whatever it is, just remember everything you do, not just the end result, is an experience and is a reflection on your brand. So going full circle to what I said at the beginning, everything, be it the 404 page that we saw, be it the testing that you're doing, being it the communications, the emails that you're sending out, everything is an experience, not just that look and feel. And then 5 things that we see happen like time and time again on projects where platforms Useberry can help you on: usability and sustainability. So making sure that you're thinking about accessibility, so just the ability for people to use your site, and then just thinking about that sustainability as well. So are you uploading massive great images? Because everybody said, oh, they want to see a huge image in the hero area, or they'd love to see a big videos auto playing at the start. That's going to have massive effects on sustainability and also the speed of your site. So people may not even bother clicking around to watch it. So just think about that. The first touch point, the website or any digital communication might be the first touch point that people have with your website. That first paint that they see, so that the hero header, that may be the very first connection that people have with your website. So make sure you're not just saying we are brand name or welcome to our site, whatever it might be. Really make sure that first touch point is communicating what you do through an emotive statement. And again, this is something you can test through A/B testing or preference testing on Useberry. You can just create very simple mock-ups, throw it into the platform, create a test, pull yourself an audience together, and test all that. CTAs, calls to actions, making sure that they're clear, making sure they're consistent, making sure that you're not having many things that you're asking people on one page. You may have fundraising managers or campaign managers or marketing departments saying that we need to communicate all this on the page, and it's your job as either the person that communicates with your agency or as the person who's conducting UX within your organization to really understand, okay, where am I going to hit that cognitive overload that we spoke? Where am I going to start making this page a little bit too confusing? And again, you can test that through Useberry. Either A/B test different sort of messaging, or how many different things can I ask on one page before people start to get confused, particularly on things that have a short run that you're not going to be able to maybe look at the analytics that are coming through Google. If you're running a campaign for a week, you need to know that you're hitting the floor running, and Useberry just helps you massively with that. Navigation, probably the bit where we use Useberry the most. So we use the tree testing function, we pull prototypes in. Really understanding whether the navigation works well for your audience is imperative. And then that why, explaining why you do something. So I think everybody can explain what they do, easy, right? We do it day in, day out. You're probably quite good at explaining how you do it, but communicating why you do it and starting with that is massively important. There's a guy called Simon Sinek, who, check him on YouTube. He very too much talks about this why, what, how, and the fact that most people start with the what, they then go on to talk about the how, and then they might talk about the why, but generally they say, actually, yeah, I totally can't remember why we do this. Why did I just wake up this morning and come to work? Can't remember. So really think about what that why is, and again, the sentiment and everything else that we spoke at the beginning. And this is where Useberry, again, you can test that. First of all, understand if you're communicating your why on your platform just by putting in your website into Useberry and asking, what do we do? Some people might get it, some people might not. And what you'll generally find is people want to come back and say, yeah, I got it, I understood what it is. So they'll really work hard. Obviously, in the real world environment, they won't. They're just going, I don't know what this is. I'm going to move on to the next people. I did really understand why they're doing something. So that is the end of the presentation.
Great. Thanks so much, Chris. Great insights, really detailed. Thanks for everything you shared with us today. So if you're curious to see how Useberry could work for your team or your clients, would love to chat, just scan this QR code on your screen. It will take you to a page where you can schedule a demo with our team. And yeah, that was pretty much it. Thanks for watching. Huge thanks to Chris and the PixelDex team for sharing their insights. If you have any questions, reach out. Make sure to follow Useberry for more sessions like this one. And yeah, see you at the next one. Cheers.